And then we have step 3, which kind of has an asterisk beside it, because this step may or may not be necessary, just depending. What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope all y'all are having a wonderful day. It is Thursday, May 2nd here in South Georgia. And on today's video, we're going to be working in the sweet corn patch here behind me. And I'm going to give you a really simple 3-step fertility plan to grow some awesome sweet corn in your backyard. So before we get over there to the corn, let's talk about what else we have growing in this plot. We had some extra brassica transplants laying around a month or so ago, and I just threw them in the ground here. Didn't feel real optimistic about it, and as you can see, they're not looking great. We may leave a few of those. We may just scrap those in the next few weeks. Got some lettuce over there that's hanging on. Some of it's starting to bolt. We really need to start chipping away at that. That red lettuce on the end there is looking really nice though. And then over here we've got 6 double rows of Nirvana sweet corn that we planted back in early April. Got really good germination on this stand here. A few of the stalks are leaning a little bit because we had a bad storm a few days ago, but it's starting to stand back upright. Now, some of y'all may recall last year with our sweet corn planting, we had a bad armyworm attack once it got up and going, and they were chewing down our corn like crazy. We were able to get that under control with some spinosad. So that was something I was keeping a close eye on this year. Haven't seen any worm damage yet, but I'm prepared to tackle that problem if it arises. Now, when we planted this corn and I was going through all the pros and cons of this double row planting technique with the drip tape down the center of the double rows, I told you that you don't want to do this in a spot with really heavy weed pressure because it can be tougher to weed this corn when it's planted on double rows like this. Now, once these corn plants get a little taller, they will actually shade out this center area right here in the middle of the double row. We don't have to worry about weeds a whole lot there. But early on, we do have to worry about weeds between these corn plants here, and we don't want them to get too out of control. Yes, the hilling process that we're going to do later today will smother out some of them, but I've had to do a couple rounds of some really delicate weeding just to keep things under control initially. So I've been coming through here with my little single tine cultivator and just delicately working around these corn plants, trying to get rid of some of those small weeds. Got it looking pretty clean now. This process, it's delicate, and every now and then I will clip a corn plant. You can see one right there that I got the other day. That's okay, we still have plenty left here. But I wanted to get this under control before we did what we're going to do today. So now let's talk about fertility. Sweet corn is one of the most hungry and thirsty plants that you can grow in a backyard garden. We've got the thirsty part handled with the drip tape there, but we're going to need to take care of that hungry part today, and I'm going to give you a really simple plan. Now, I'm not going to give specific amount recommendations today. I don't really like doing that because everybody's soil is different. Some people have to fertilize a lot more than others, just depending on what type of soil you have and what things you've done to that soil to kind of build it up over the years. So let's get into our 3-step plan. Now, step 1 we've already done, and that's to put down a relatively balanced fertilizer at planting. We use Coop Grow. If you want to be organic, you could also use something like the NatureSafe 855 or another relatively balanced granular organic fertilizer. And if you don't care about being organic, you can go with something like 10-10-10 or 13-13-13, something with equal or relatively equal percentages of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So that's step 1, which we've already done. Now, step 2 is what we're going to do today, and that's to give the corn just some straight nitrogen. Now, we're going to be using some NatureSafe 1300. You could use sodium nitrate, you could use ammonium nitrate. There's a lot of different nitrogen sources out there, a lot more synthetic nitrogen options than there are organic nitrogen options, but there are plenty out there to choose from. And so in a minute, to take care of this second step, we'll be side dressing both of these double rows with some of that NatureSafe 1300 and then covering it up with soil as we heal those corn plants. And then we have step 3, which kind of has an asterisk beside it, because this step may or may not be necessary, just depending on your soil conditions and how much fertility you've built up in that soil. So for step 3, when our corn grows a little more and gets about knee high, we'd want to add another round of nitrogen, same stuff we used in step 2. We would use the NatureSafe 1300. So we'd end up giving it 2 rounds of nitrogen, one in step 2 when it's about 12 to 18 inches tall, and then another round in step 3 when it's about knee high. Now I have found that sometimes I can get away with skipping that third fertilization. That has a lot to do with my girls and the chicken tractor back there. So if I've had the chicken tractor on a plot before we plant corn, and we had it on this plot for a good while before we turned over that cover crop and got it ready to plant corn. If I've had that chicken tractor on there a while, I've got a lot of nitrogen, I've got a lot of nutrients built up there, and I may not need that third fertilization. But if my corn isn't dark green, when it gets about knee high, it doesn't look as good as I think it should look, I ain't scared to give it some more nitrogen and take care of that third step. So if you use a lot of manure in your garden, if you mix a lot of manure into the soil before you plant, you may not need that third step. Just keep a close eye on your corn. Let the color of the leaves tell you if it needs another round of nitrogen or not. You may be able to skip it. You may want to just play it safe and give some to it anyways. So just to recap, balanced fertilizer at planting, nitrogen at 12 to 18 inches tall, and then more nitrogen if you need it at knee high. That's the simple, easy corn fertilization plan. If you follow that, you should grow some pretty nice corn. Now, as a side note to that simple plan, let me mention this. If you plant your corn, it germinates, it gets up and going, and when it's about 12 to 18 inches tall, like this corn behind me is, and those leaves are light green and not dark green, that is your sign that you don't have much fertility in your soil and that you're probably going to have to fertilize more than normal. But this corn behind me is green enough for my liking at this stage in the game, which tells me we do have a decent amount of fertility built up in that soil, which we should, using the chicken tractor like we have on this plot. But that's just something to monitor. Use your eyes. Let your eyes tell you what that corn needs. You want it to be as dark green as possible. If it's not, help it out. So that's our plan. Now let's carry out step 2 on this beautiful Nirvana corn. And I told y'all we were going to be using the NatureSafe 1300, which we've used a lot in the past with great success. My buddy Mark brought me a few bags of this stuff yesterday. Now this is the same analysis as we've used in the past, 1300, but this stuff is a little different. Notice down here it says coarse instead of pelleted. So the NatureSafe 1300 that we've used in previous years was in pelleted form. Looked a lot like that coop grow that you see us use all the time, although the NatureSafe pellets weren't quite as dark. This right here looks a lot different. This looks more like chicken scratch. But as far as I can tell, it's the same stuff. It just looks a little different, has the same ingredients, feather meal, meat meal, and blood meal, and a little bit of ammoniacal nitrogen to give that corn a quick little pop. If you're in the South Georgia or North Florida areas and want to get your hands on some of this stuff, Graco Fertilizer over in the big city of Cairo, Georgia, just got a big shipment of the NatureSafe 1300 and the 855. So you can head over there, pick some up. Don't have to worry about paying some crazy online shipping charges. Make sure you tell them Trav at Lazy Dog Farm sent you. Now when you're side dressing corn with a synthetic fertilizer, you got to be really careful not to get any of those pellets or granules down in that corn plant, because it will burn them and can kill them. You don't have to be as careful with the organic stuff, but I like to be careful just in case. So when I'm sprinkling this alongside the row here, I'll lean down and we just get it right alongside those plants here so it will be covered up when we heal them. I'm going to use an entire scoop here down each side of this double row. Okay, so we got all 6 of those double rows side dressed on each side. Now just a little nugget before we heal this corn and cover that fertilizer. If you're side dressing with synthetic fertilizers, be prepared for a little bit of a weed boom after you do it, because those nutrients in the synthetic fertilizers are so available, those weeds can grab them real quick and thrive. Now, I'm not here to preach organic versus synthetic fertilizers. You use what you want to use. Just know if you're using synthetics, be prepared for a little bit of a weed pop. Now, one of the downsides to this double row technique, for me at least, is that I can't hill it with the wheel hoe, and even if I had a little tractor, this plot's too small to get a tractor in anyway. So, gonna have to do it by hand, me and old Manuel here. Gonna go down the side of each row, knock it out. We just want to cover up that fertilizer, get some nice support up on those stalks there. So that was a good little workout, but that's all right. Little manual labor ain't never hurt nobody. I didn't get to go to the gym this morning because Brooklyn had court this morning, so we just make it up out here. And so that's what we want it to look like. Not healed up super tall, not healed as high as we heal taters, but good enough. And so that healing process serves several purposes. Of course, it's going to cover the fertilizer like we talked about. It's also going to suppress some of those weeds just by smothering them with more soil. It's also going to help stabilize our corn plants and make them a little less likely to get blown down should we get a heavy storm. It's not going to make the corn plants impervious to wind. I've seen healed corn plants get blown down too, but it will help a little bit as long as we don't get a crazy wild storm. So I hope you enjoyed the video today, and let me know in the comments below, if you're an experienced corn grower, how many rounds of nitrogen you usually give to your corn. And if you want to know more about this double row planting technique, all the pros and cons of it, watch this video and we'll explain all that. So check that out, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.